today, Peter, I'm gonna tee it up for you. You ready? What are we gonna do today? What are you gonna do? Can you hear it, Peter? What's our topic for the day?
Wow.
It's droning. Drones. I was droning. Did
it's
you get
so funny. I called Jason and I go, drones. I don't think it's ever going to happen. How are they going to do delivery drones? I don't get how it's even possible. It doesn't make sense that we can do drones in the sky. So that's my take. Your take is?
My take is, it's a fait accompli. First of all, they're already on the ground. They're rolling down the sidewalk, the drones. And second of all, we now live in a world where if I need it, you were supposed to give it to me a second ago. You have to, there's no patience.
That's true.
Everybody can't get here tomorrow. I order something on the phone at 2 o'clock this afternoon. It comes 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. No good. Now it has to be there in an hour, in a minute, in a second.
It kills me to agree with you, but you realize we used to have restaurants. Then we had takeout, right?
Yeah.
Then we had fast food.
Right.
Then we had drive-through because that wasn't good enough. And now I'm on the 405. I'm going 80. Drop that in my car. I want it now. I'm out of toilet paper. Lower it into my bathroom. I mean, but how are you going to do that? So you know what we do here on the show? We get experts on it.
We delve.
Really? No, really? Really? No, really?
And we're looking at Dr. Roger Connor. How are you, sir?
I'm great.
Nice
Thank
to see
you.
you. Let me go through. I usually don't take the time to go through a bio, but yours is so extensive. Dr. Connor curates the museum, the Air and Space Museum, National Air and Space Museum's Vertical Flight Collection. Jason?
The what?
The Vertical Flight Collection.
He curates the Vertical Flight Collection?
That's correct.
That's it? Just the vertical flight?
No.
It has to go up and down. That's it. Otherwise,
You
not
don't
his
do
business.
so you don't do lateral?
He can't. If he rolls 5 feet down the runway before it goes up, not his area.
Can't do that. Can't do it. You do
If it sidles for a moment, no good. Only straight up, straight down. All right. Very limited collection. All right, go ahead.
Don't like roadways.
All right. Let's see here. He's a specialist when it comes to remotely piloted and autonomous aircraft systems.
Nice.
Ground effects vehicles.
Sure.
He's a specialist when it comes to air traffic control.
Oh, good.
Airports.
A specialist. Good. Maybe before, listen, it's going to be a bit left turn, but if you could explain to me what the hell they're doing at Los Angeles Airport, that would be, because I don't.
You don't get it?
They've been building it for 7 years, and all I know is I can't get where I need to go.
And
I can't drive a car in there. I can't get picked up. I can't get a bag onto a thing. There are people there going, move on.
Yeah, why is that, by the way?
Mayhem.
Why is it at LAX, I have to kind of slow down enough and say to my wife, get out. I'm not stopping. I'm going to slow down and push you out.
That's right. Exactly.
My God. All right, he's also an experienced commercial pilot with over 4,000 hours. A flight, 4,000 hours.
Is that
a flight time?
Is that a
lot? I thought it was 10,000 hours. Everything's 10,000 hours.
Yeah, you put in 10,000 hours, you know what you're doing.
So how are you?
I am great. Thank you so much.
Sounds like you're busy. You're an expert on many, many things.
Yeah, I have to be a time traveler in this job. So I'm in World War I in the morning and dealing with what's happening in 2050 with sustainable aviation in the afternoon.
Wow.
So this is the guy. So delivery drones. You've got chimneys, you've got electrical wires, you got birds, you got all kinds of stuff going on. How is it possible? And the back end of that is, I know that billionaires are investing in it. So obviously I'm wrong. How is that going to be possible, Doctor, that delivery drones are a reality?
So it is a reality, but the question is, who is it a reality for? And the short answer right now is criminals.
Sorry?
So,
okay, thanks for being with us. Wow.
You know, smuggling is where it's at right now with delivery drones. And so the real question is, can somebody that moves coffee by drone be as successful as the criminals?
So can't I piggyback my pizza on like a cocaine run? Can't they multitask?
Well, the advantage of the criminal element is they don't have to worry about regulations or safety or some of those other things.
Wow,
really
hold on a second. Wow, give us
us
a second. Really, no, really. It's the criminal. That's where it's working. The criminals. Unbelievable. And it's, I've been to the border, and I went with the border agents, and they said they're outmanned and outspent because the drug guys have unlimited resources. I'm assuming same thing with the drones. Unlimited resources to create these things, yes?
Right. And, it's across the northern and southern borders of the United States. It's into prisons, which is a particular problem. And then we see it on an international scale.
So
wait. Are you saying that there's a drone use in the prison community of some kind?
Smuggling into prison. So
Via a drone?
a drone dropping into the prison yard is really what's happening, right? So someone flies the drone over with
Don't they have prison guards
Well,
or are they
okay, so
dropping
what
cash
movies
to
am I
them?
watching where there's a guy, a sniper in a turret? They can't see they're droning right past these guys?
Well, if you get it up high enough, yeah, really hard to see with the naked eye. You're probably not going to hear it. So pretty hard to detect, and you drop a cell phone or
But can a cell phone kill inmate
in some cases
from
drugs.
800 feet up? Isn't a cell phone going to take out inmate 83407 if it hits him?
Might be, but see, that's an acceptable loss by their standards.
Wow. So how big
That's
is the
amazing.
drone criminal business? How big a business is that? Do we know?
It's we don't know. So the federal government's not been releasing a lot of information on this, and it's not clear that even they have a particularly good handle on it. So we really only know anecdotally, and what we do know is that it was starting to increase rapidly before the pandemic, but we don't have solid figures really in the public sense after that. We do have a lot of anecdotal reports, so there are occasions where these things either crash or they're captured or something like that.
And Roger, are we talking about the kind of drone, the kind of drones I'm picking up at Target and Walmart? I mean, are they literally the ones that are sold for recreational
Most of
use?
these are commercial, yeah. We do see in some, particularly in Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, we see some more military grade drones being used for it, but mostly what we see either kind of domestically with these prison drops or what the narcos are using are essentially the off the shelf commercial drones. Some of the kinds that you would see in Hollywood for filming, but
Yeah.
even some of the ones that you can buy on Amazon.
So we know about the positive uses for drones as far as inspection of buildings, delivering to remote areas, medicines and stuff. I get that. But drones in LA and urban environments as delivery systems, and everybody's trying to cut back on last mile. That's what every business is trying to do, deliver business. How do we figure out the most efficient way? So gig workers are getting too expensive for these companies. They also can't find enough, so they're trying to replace them with drones. But a drone, from prepping for this subject, to have the right radar or lidar and be able to navigate, its weight. The more you put in a drone, the heavier it gets. Can we do commercial drones that actually deliver a package that's 50 pounds now safely? I know they've tried it in remote areas. Have they done it in dense areas at all?
Not that. So the real problem here is the size of the package. So, we have companies that are actively demonstrating the ability to operate in at least a rural or a suburban environment relatively safely. Now, the real problem is that the regulation is so far behind because of all the complexities that you're mentioning that it's not entirely clear how much of that additional technology you have to add to keep the thing safe. It's actually a lot more challenging problem than say a self-driving car, which really the self-driving car, what it has to do is read the road signs and apply the rules, and it more or less is going to function effectively as long as it navigates the traffic. In terms aviation terms, it gets to be a lot more complicated because there's no set routes. So you're constantly running into things like power lines. That was an incident that happened fairly recently in Australia where a delivery drone landed on a power line and knocked out power to 2,000 homes.
Okay.
It
Wow.
delivered a blackout.
Well, and then there's
So
liability.
but are you saying that the aerial drones that we're discussing are not operator controlled? Are they autonomous drones?
So it's a combination. Essentially, they're the ones that are under trial right now by the e-commerce companies are essentially supervised. So they're autonomous in the sense that there's not a pilot with a joystick actively controlling them, at least unless there's an emergency. So there's an ability to kind of take over, but really what they're looking for is that you would have 10 or more drones being supervised simultaneously by an individual that's essentially watching at a station. If something's not right, then they have the ability to intervene and either give it a land immediately signal or a recall notice or something like that.
What's interesting, because you go to self-driving cars, the number of self-driving cars that are crashing, and I don't want to give a stat because it changes all the time, in the self-driving world is not acceptable where they want it to be. And I noticed
what would be acceptable?
0 would be really good.
Zero's the bar.
But again, tech can't do certain things. And what fascinated me was with self-driving car and with a drone, so it comes upon a long train.
I know what a train is.
They think it's a wall. To a drone, it looks like a wall.
Sure.
Unless it has velocity detection, it thinks it's a wall. And then all of a sudden, after 5 minutes, it's not there.
Yeah.
The drone doesn't know what to do, correct? Isn't that's something that a drone can't necessarily figure out, right? Without more and more and more tech stuff on there.
Yeah, and this gets to, I think, the major problem, not just for drones, but aviation as a whole as we move through the century, and that is automation, right? The biggest problems that we've seen in commercial aviation over the last couple of decades has not been mechanical failure, but the problem of the human crew members understanding the automation and what it's doing. And it's that disconnect that's led to the most serious accidents in recent commercial air travel. And, same sort of thing here. What happens when the algorithm is deciding, where exactly to fly, and it's not just a safety issue. It's an environmental justice issue. Whose house gets flown over? Who owns the airspace over that house at particularly low level? These are things that have not been decided yet, and are really kind of major hurdles to implementing this kind of thing on a large scale.
Let me take a little bit of a turn and ask you a question, because you talked about the air rights over there. So I don't think this has happened to me, but I do have celebrity friends who have been in their backyard and they look up and there's a camera drone over the yard. Is there a height at which they can claim that it is trespassing, or is there any rights for the airspace above their property to prevent that?
Airspace is a really difficult problem at the federal scale because there's very little case law on it. Essentially, the FAA has the authority to regulate navigable airspace, and in general terms, that's traditionally meant basically not coming within 500 feet of people or structures.
Right.
Now, what happened when the drones came in, the FAA said, look, we do not want this type of technology mixing with aircraft with humans on them. And so they have to be completely segregated out. So we're basically going to limit drones to operating between the surface and 400 feet. The problem is that's not really in this navigable airspace environment. And the rules about who actually owns that airspace is not at all clear. And so what we've seen is the regulation for what you're talking about, things like trespass or spying on people, that's really kind of come down to local ordinances. So, you really have to, complain to local authorities, and then the person flying it is going to be held to account in terms of, the spying aspect by the local authorities, whereas the FAA has some kind of loose regulations, things like careless and reckless operation that they can apply. But it's a wild west in terms of exactly who's going to have the greatest authority over this type of delivery system.
And are you concerned, by the way, before we wrap up, that the big companies that are investing, and they all are, the Amazons, the Walmarts, et cetera, they have lobbying that can change. They push Washington to do loopholes and change the restrictions to benefit them, which I get. I mean, they're trying to move business forward, and this is going to be the jobs of the future. The gig economy is going to kind of diminish, and this will be the new jobs of the future. Do you see that happening soon? Do you see delivery drones anytime soon in major cities?
The pattern of regulation for this type of technology, and especially how novel it is and how much we don't really understand about the interface between all of this automation, suggests that the FAA is going to be extremely cautious, which is what they've signaled.
Which we hope and pray that they're good
and
that they're not smeared with money and say, we'll let this fly over your house.
Do you see an upside to the advent of the drones? Does it pollute less? Is it really a far more efficient means of delivery, or is it? Because when I look at it, I just look at people losing jobs. But is there a net positive for society at large to have this become a more standard delivery system?
There are applications. So the most prominent of those is Zipline, which is a company that's been operating primarily in Africa. And what they do is they deliver often blood supplies to remote medical facilities by so it's essentially a drone airplane that parachutes out the package using GPS. So they basically launch it with a giant slingshot. It has a kind of a wire recovery system that snatches out of the air. It's amazing in terms of its operation. I think they've just recently dropped their 500,000th package from one of these things. And Walmart's had an association with them testing it in the United States. So there's a case where, the roads are really bad in certain areas in Africa, particularly, in wet seasons, for instance. And so if you were to try and take that blood supply around via a moped, or something, you might not make it through. So the ability to parachute it in is a huge advantage. So there's an application that has a clear advantage over other approaches. The military is obviously another case where there's huge advantages, and we already see the Air Force and Marine Corps are moving very aggressively to develop relatively large delivery drones, much larger than what the e-commerce companies are experimenting with. So
Dr. Connor,
I would expect to see those come in first.
Am I hearing a dog, or are you having stomach issues? Do we need to stop?
Oh, that's
okay. I heard some kind of.
That's the last sound you hear before the drone comes in, and
Well, you know what I'm worried about? Liability, distracted droning. You know what I mean? Like you got gamers who are now coordinating these drones, and once they give them more than one, they've got like 5 that they got to do, and the guy's talking on his phone, playing whatever it is. You got distracted droning going on, and liability. Now,
did you just coin this phrase, distracted droning? Is that a phrase that exists, or
does that exist? Distracted droning?
It's an interesting question. I think what we're actually saying is too much automation now that it's really the algorithm that's the problem more so than the human operator in a lot of these cases.
You see, Peter, you're worried, so your fears are over. Nothing to worry about. It's automation. There's no distracted droner. There's no kid with a game.
Yeah, automation always works. It's always good.
Always.
You know
always.
What? Automation cannot replace. We'll have this conversation later.
But here's an example of how it doesn't work, because this was a story I read researching for this. So there was a Amazon Prime Air apparently is Amazon's putting quite a bit of money into developing this technology. So they've flown 10 of these, test deliveries. Well, first of all, according to this, the FAA says the drone cannot fly over a road. Can't fly over a road unless there's a spotter.
Okay.
So you're already not saving money on human because you got spotters every time it crosses the road.
Right.
But in the 10 that they've flown, 5 of them have crashed in a 4-month period, and one of them that crashed started a fire that burnt 25 acres.
Unlucky run.
Just that's that all it is?
Bad run.
Yeah, bad run.
But Amazons have been trying to get this off the ground for a while, and they've had issues, right? But that doesn't mean they're going to bag it, right?
Yeah, and the issue with the spotter on the road was caused because that particular aircraft was operating above the threshold of 55 pounds, which is kind of where the FAA has capped what they consider, essentially a safe drone for this kind of initial phase of operation. So once you go above 55 pounds, the FAA is looking at it as an entirely more intensive experimental category.
Thank God.
So if your kid's late,
the FAA is on it, because I know if a 53-pound package falls on me, I'm perfectly fine. 55, that's an owie.
It can do a package under 55 pounds or a third grader who's late for school. It can kind of do that. Look, it's fascinating to me because I look at it and I go, I can't ever imagine it. I don't know how they're going to regulate it, whatever. But again, every major company's doing it. So before you go, I got to ask, I have homeowners insurance, car insurance, fire insurance, earthquake insurance, and flood insurance. Do I now have to have drone crashing insurance? Because if it hits my car, they're not responsible. I'm responsible, and I got to start wearing a hard hat to work.
Yeah, it's a huge question. Absolutely, a fair question.
You're supposed to have the answer. You're the expert.
We know it's a good question. All we do all day is come up with good questions.
I hard bought this because we ask good questions. We need you, the expert, Mr. Drone Pants, to answer the question.
Oh, what? I guess we didn't ask a vertical question. We horizontaled a little bit.
What am I asking? I could ask Jason rather than you. So, liability hasn't been figured out yet, obviously. Again, for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
No.
and I think obviously there's going to be a huge risk. I think if this starts with delivering coffees and burritos and that sort of thing, I suspect what you're going to see is more supply chain oriented delivery, where you have a factory complex and different components or different parts of the factory are separated by some distance, and within that compound you can move things by air.
So routine routes between so business to business more so than business to consumer.
And it's also, I would say, fairly certain that when we do start to see a broader application, that it's going to be limited in terms of where it's traversing. So is it are these things going to be following public right of ways, for instance? They're probably not going to be traversing across people's neighborhoods to get from A to B. For the most part, that we'll have to see how that develops. But certainly in terms of this liability question, I think you're going to see a pretty measured and careful approach because of that very issue.
But to that effect, can't these things be hacked? Could somebody hack into them and redirect them?
Cybersecurity is a huge concern with this. There's no doubt about that.
So, or of course, a kid with a rock could hit it, can steal your stuff. I mean, then it's vulnerable. You can shoot it down. You can whatever. Yeah, there are a lot of ways to take it down. It's a fascinating world. I just read that you know about the Chinese drone that swims and flies?
Yeah.
What is that? Well, hello, really?
Yep, and I've there's even some I've seen in this country that are fully aquatic, that it'll take off from the bottom of a swimming pool.
Oh my God! Can I ask a question? With all this technology, I'm 63 years old. Back in 1966, I believe, I saw a man on television with a pack on his back fly through the air and soar around. It is 2023. Where is my jetpack? What are we fooling around with these drones? Give me the package. Give me the jetpack. I got nothing else to do. I'll get it where it needs to go.
If you have the money, you can do it today.
But they're not. But I know you can because I've seen videos of people doing it. But we haven't really extended the range of these things, right? I mean, like a 3-minute flight is a big deal, and maybe it's a mile or 2 or 3. But we're not really. They're not becoming more viable than that, are they, at this moment?
They are. There is the upscaled version of these smaller drones are what are called eVTOL, or electric vertical takeoff and landing. And
vertical.
This is an entirely different, aspect of the market, right? In 2017, Uber announced this huge effort to attempt to create autonomous 4-passenger air taxis. That was going to be the
oh wow, boy!
New model, right?
That's happening.
And some of those aircraft have come a very long way. Billions have been thrown in venture capital, particularly in Silicon Valley, towards these projects. And some of them are actually getting relatively close to certification. Now, when they do get certified, it's pretty certain that they're going to have a human pilot on board instead of an autopilot running it. So it's going to be essentially a variant on a helicopter when they actually come into being, but they'll be electric and essentially upscale drones.
And what's amazing in prepping for you, I read that in the 40s, they promised people that they have personal helicopters. So this has always been a thing, correct?
Oh, yeah. You can go back to the 1890s, and there's this vision of what has been called urban air mobility.
What this boils down to a lot of times for our show is, should we invest? that's what it comes down to. Are we putting money into this thing or not?
Invest carefully would be my advice.
Really? Yeah. So it's still a long way. Well, still a long way.
Because an air taxi, I'm nervous about getting into a ground taxi at this point. An air taxi.
Well, thank you for coming on. You got a breadth and depth of knowledge for this. And the Air and Space Museum, we did a live show there. What a wonderful place. Is that where your office is?
Yeah.
We're under the Soyuz.
Are you under the Sputnik? Are you under Apollo 1?
You're above. You're above
Sputnik.
It is amazing. By the way, we did a show there. I was starting to tell you before we went on. Everywhere we went, you couldn't rehearse and you couldn't set up a stage because it's open to the public until 5 or 6. They close, they rush us into this area, build a stage, and everywhere I went, they said, don't open that door. Don't open that door. What's behind those doors? What are you hiding at the Air and Space Museum?
Usually those doors are just the fire exits.
Yeah, sure they are. Sure they are, Gary. Just fire exits.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Roger Connor of the National Air and Space Museum. And I won't go through the whole...
Expert on vertical.
You need horizontal. It's Bill Glendon down the hall.
4,000 hours, which
Bill,
is not
I got
enough,
a call here on
still.
horizontal. I got a horizontal going. Can you help me out?
Yeah. and 4,000 hours, which is
4,000 hours.
Almost. He's almost halfway to what most people would say would be
when you'll
comfortable.
get it. And you're doing helicopter rating too. That's really hard to do, right?
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun.
Is that like patting your stomach and doing the head thing where you're doing different stuff at the same time? Is that what it feels like?
Oh yeah, very rewarding though if you'd master it.
I have to say, I was in a tourism helicopter in Hawaii, and it was one of the first times I was in a helicopter, and it was thrilling. I mean, they did a great job. There's music and the headphones. It's like the Indiana Jones theme, and the guy lifted up about 20 feet off the runway, and he ran the runway. And when the runway ended, you were 200 feet above the shoreline, and he ran the shoreline. And I'm just, this is the guy. And I go, I got to do this. We finished the flight. I went, I'm going to learn how to fly one of these things. I said to the pilot, I'm going to learn how to fly. You've changed my life. I'm going to learn how to fly a helicopter. And the pilot said to me, don't do that. Don't do that. He goes, I get paid to make this look easy and safe.
It's
I
very
do this
difficult.
7 days a week. I've been doing it for 17 years. I know every air current on this island. You want to learn how to fly a plane. He waved me off so fast from the helicopter.
The other thing you don't ever want to do, I went up with a friend who's a helicopter
Yeah.
pilot. He went in a big circle and he went through his own turbulence just to show me what it feels like. You don't want to ever do that either.
Yeah.
You don't. You feel like a
I
puppet
also-
hanging. Look at him.
right.
Look, nodding.
Yeah. I also said, does the auto rotation work if you're going down? He goes, it gives you something to do.
Yeah, it does. By the way, does the auto rotation work, or does it depend on how high you are, or more time for prayer? What's the?
There is something called the dead man's curve.
Oh boy.
That's how you figure out if you're in the right place to make it.
Real. What and what are the qualifications for right place? Over a
Height
mattress
and
store? I mean, what's the
velocity.
right place?
The curve is based on height and velocity. So you either need to be really fast or high. And high is, so it starts at 500 feet at zero airspeed and kind of works down to
Oh my God.
higher speeds the closer you get.
I'm going down and I got to do math.
Gosh,
We're in
gosh.
trouble.
Well,
We're
thank
crashing.
you, thank you. Good luck. Be safe. Be safe in the helicopter. Okay, and we'll talk to you again when you get 10,000 hours. Call us back. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Thank you very much.
Roger Connor. So, even though he says it's a while in the future, it's hard to predict that this could really happen. But I got to go with the big guys. They're all Walmart, Amazon. They're all in on this.
I do believe this technology is going to come in and
God.
it's going to pervade.
And what will it
I
use
think
to
in
do that?
some
What will that
ways,
technology grow?
I
AI?
think it is going to further split a very divided economy. I think that the people who have invested in it and developed it and run companies like Amazon and all these things, they're going to see great profitability from being able to have these delivery systems. However, I think it's going to be devastating to the human economy. These are hundreds of thousands of jobs that are going to be eradicated because of these things. And the more and more we do that, the more and more we replace human work and human endeavor with technology, the worse off we're going to be. But it is inevitable because of what I said in the beginning. People are out of patience. I'm out of patience with you. You're out of patience with me.
Oh, I lost
But-
patience in you.
I know.
Way halfway. I
I
can give
know.
you the time when that happened.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
I'll tell you the year. I'll tell you who was president when that happened.
But it's nobody can wait for anything more.
So-
I actually think this notion of medicine, I understand. Vital organs, I understand. But this notion that I can't wait a day to get my delivery from Amazon.
By the way, cut to
now I have
Jason
to have
Home.
30 minutes.
Jason Home later going, I ordered a mic for this thing. It's still not here. I think you're right, partial credit, but I do think, and this is a little serious for this show,
Yeah.
but I know in other countries, they're preparing the next generation for the jobs that are going to be happening.
Well,
Where in
what
this
would be
way,
the
let me
job in
finish. Where
this?
we're in this country, we're not necessarily preparing kids for the jobs that are going to be happening. You can't.
I love America.
You can't do keep.
I'm the one that loves America. But what do you mean? What
Oh
kind
my
of
gosh.
jobs?
I'm not
But honestly. I mean,
No,
you're talking
technical
about
jobs, technical jobs. But warehousing is going to change. Manufacturing is going to change and be more automated. This is going to be more automated. So we have to move education to how do you fix? How do you program? How do you do? That's the future. You can't just say, oh my God, stop the future. It's going to be horrible for mankind. It's marching on. So if we know what the technology involves, train the kids.
Yeah.
By the way,
I
the
know,
dumb that I am, I told my kids don't play video games.
Our kids are roughly the same age. They're grown men, right? They grew up in the age of, computer science, computer technology. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. We're going to train the next generation for computer jobs. My kids are barely more literate on a computer than I am, and I'm illiterate. So, we don't do such a great job at preparing the next generation.
I'm
for the
saying
new
that's what I'm
technology.
saying when you went to I Love America. We need to prepare them for the next job. Thank you for being with us on another episode of Really No Really.
Next one coming to you by drone.
If you liked it half as much as we like doing it, we liked it
Twice as
probably
much
twice
as
as
you
much
did.
as you like
That's
listening,
right.
which is not,
What does
whatever.
that mean?
See ya.
Bye.